You ever wake up to the sound of your own life blowing up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday? Because I have. There I was, standing in nothing but boxer shorts by my grandfather's old canvas tent. Property deed clutched in one hand. Coffee cooling on a nearby log. When I saw two sheriff's deputies trudging through the mist off the lake. And right behind them, well, that shrill voice could only belong to Patricia Whitmore, president of the Lakeside Estates HOA. That's him, officers. Illegal camping. Disturbing our peaceful community. She had that iPad in her hand, red nails drumming like she was sending a Morse code SOS to the world of entitled busybodies. Now, these deputies, they looked genuinely sorry, but duty's duty, right? They explained they'd gotten a complaint. So I started packing up, glancing back as a whole crowd of neighbors watched me from their fancy decks like I was the main act in a circus. Here's the thing Patty didn't know. I just spent 3 days crawling through the county courthouse basement, flipping through records so old they smelled like a library's ghost. What I found? Well, it was about to turn their perfectly manicured lakefront world upside down. Let me back up for a second. Name's Mike. I inherited 47 acres of lake property from my grandpa, a World War II vet who bought it back in '52. Place has spring-fed water, 1.25 miles of shoreline, the kind of fishing you brag about all winter. Every summer growing up, we'd camp there, me and my folks, Grandpa teaching me to cast from the dock he built stone by stone, showing me which trees had the old survey markers nailed in, telling stories around the fire pit. Last year, divorce wrecked me. Then I lost my job 3 months after. That lake? It kept me from falling apart. The smell of loons at dawn, dew on my feet, with smoke curling through the pines. My little slice of sanity. Now, the property butts up against Lakeside Estates. Row after row of million-dollar homes with lawns you could perform surgery on. I always got along fine with the neighbors until Patricia got herself elected HOA president. Patty's claim to fame? Ticketing people for Christmas lights, snapping photos of mailboxes that weren't exactly 3 degrees from plumb. She'd wander around with a measuring tape, like she was the final boss in some suburban video game. So there I was Friday night, setting up Grandpa's tent like I'd done for years right by the stone fire pit, maybe 50 yards from the water. Nobody ever complained. But at 6 a.m. sharp, here came Patty, 2 deputies in tow. "This is a residential area with camping restrictions," she declared, as if reading the 10 Commandments. I handed over my deed. Michael Stevens, 47 acres, all water rights. Deputy Martinez, nice guy, apologized. "Sir, it's a civil matter. We have to respond." Patty? She wouldn't back down. "He's disturbing the peace, lowering our property values." So I packed up my grandfather's tent, feeling their eyes on my back. Let me tell you, nothing stings like being humiliated in front of your neighbors while the person causing the scene is sipping her coffee, acting like she's just solved the crime. Patty finished it off with, "Maybe next time you'll think twice before causing problems for our community." That was it. I needed to know exactly what our community meant. Monday morning, still steaming, I get a certified letter from County Code Enforcement. Patty filed an official complaint, said I was running an unpermitted campground. Daily fines, $500 until I corrected violations. $500 a day for camping on my own land. I drove straight to the courthouse. Those brick walls just reeked of old bureaucracy. But the clerk, Dolores, she remembered my grandpa, pulled out the original 1919 property survey. Paper so brittle, I was scared to breathe on it. Now here's where it gets wild. Turns out my property boundary runs way further east than I thought. We overlaid the old survey with new county maps, and I saw it clear as daylight. The HOA's private beach, the gazebo, the boat launch, all sitting on my land. 2.3 acres, just annexed into their world like it was nothing. Dolores just shook her head. Somebody made a mistake, or they hoped nobody'd notice. For the folks keeping score at home, there's a little thing called adverse possession. If someone uses your land long enough and you don't object, they can try to claim it. But my family? We'd camped there, took photos, had receipts. No way the HOA could make that stick. Even better, Grandpa had filed a new survey in 1987, which reset the clock. So I started copying every record, hands shaking. That evening, I called Grandpa's old friend Harold Jenkins, retired surveyor, lived right in the HOA. Mike, he said, if this is true, it's bigger than you just camping. 2 days later, another letter, this time from an attorney. Cease and desist. Legal intimidation, dressed up in letterhead. Patty even called an emergency HOA meeting. Didn't invite me, but I went anyway. 47 people packed into a room for 30, stale donuts, burnt coffee in the air. Patty up front, PowerPoint blazing, photos of my messy campsite and inappropriate activities. She said I was trying to steal their amenities and demanded a special assessment of $8,000 per household for legal defense. That's when I stood up, slapped the original 1919 survey on the table. Copies for everyone. Your beach, gazebo, boat launch, they're built on my land. You could hear the wind getting knocked out of that room. People started flipping through papers, faces turning from annoyed to pale. Harold took a look, real quiet, then said, "These are legit. If this is accurate, there's a serious problem here. Another nugget for you. Always buy owner's title insurance, folks. If you ever end up in a mess like this, it could save your hide." Then Harold offered. He'd verify the boundaries with modern GPS, no charge. "We deserve to know the truth," he said. Patty sputtered, tried to argue, but the crowd wanted answers. That weekend, Harold showed up with his survey gear, Linda and Bob Martinez from the HOA in tow. We trudged around finding every old marker, GPS chirping. Turns out it was even worse. I owned almost 3 acres of what the HOA called common area. And get this, my deed had a perpetual easement for lake access, meaning my family could always cross anyone's land to get to the lake, no matter who built what. Linda was taking notes. Patty knew, she said, remembering a meeting where concerns about boundaries were brushed off. When Harold finished, he handed me a full survey report, matched the 1919 markers within 18 inches. "Your grandfather knew what he was doing," he said. As we were packing up, my phone buzzed. "Drop this or you'll regret it." Didn't take a genius to guess where that came from. That night, Linda called. Patty admitted to the board she's known since 2019 the HOA amenities weren't really on HOA land. She just thought it'd be cheaper to fight than move anything. She'd secretly photographed the minutes. Turned out to be crucial evidence later. 3 days later, Linda called again, voice shaking. "Patty used your land as collateral for a $340,000 loan for clubhouse renovations." My mug hit the counter. $340,000. They borrowed money on property they didn't own. Oh, it gets juicier. Patty's brother-in-law was the developer who built the HOA, and he knew all about it from the start. Bob Martinez found meeting minutes from 2019. Cheaper to fight than relocate amenities. Suppress survey results. They knew. For 6 years, they knew. Harold's wife, a retired accountant, offered to audit HOA finances. Found Patty had embezzled at least $73,000. Fake invoices, inflated bills, personal expenses. It smelled worse than diesel fumes from the trucks outside. Harold checked their insurance. "Mike, they're not covered for known disputes. If you win, every homeowner could be on the hook for tens of thousands." The original developer? Patty's brother-in-law? He declared bankruptcy, ran off with the profits. This was fraud, plain and simple. Sarah Chun, a legal aid attorney, heard about the case, showed up in my kitchen, and laid out the battle plan. We can go nuclear, demand they remove everything, or negotiate a lease with back rent. Harold did the math. 15 years at $2,000 a month, $360,000 back rent. And we could claim unjust enrichment. If someone profits from your land without permission, They owe you, even without a lease. Sarah grouped our evidence: ownership, conspiracy, financial fraud. All we needed was proof Patty knew it was illegal. Linda just grinned. I've got her on tape. Played a recording. Patty saying, "We'll make his life hell until he gives up." Bob organized a petition. 34 households demanding Patty resign. Harold marked every boundary with steel posts. Jim Thompson, my grandpa's old fishing buddy, lined up a reporter. Sarah's settlement offer was fair, $150,000 for a permanent easement, public disclosure, Patty's resignation. Half the back rent, less than moving costs. That night, the kitchen smelled like cookies and paperwork. Felt like a community, not a battlefield. Patty's response? Full nuclear. Another emergency meeting, $8,000 per household assessment. Intimidation ramped up. Anonymous letters, vandalism, slashed tires. Social media posts painting me as a divorced deadbeat. My business got fake one-star reviews, complaints to the BBB, canceled orders. But the real mistake? She got caught on my security cameras, spray painting fraud on my fence at 2 a.m. Sarah filed for a restraining order. The HOA finances? Audit found $73,000 missing, all traced to Patty. 3 board members wanted to settle, but Patty threatened to sue them. Linda's recordings caught Patty ranting. We have lawyers. We have the city council. She'd been paying attorneys with HOA reserve funds without authorization. The wheels were coming off. Then came the private investigator, $20,000 of HOA money spent trying to dig up dirt on me. The PI quit. His report? Mike Stevens is boringly law-abiding. The criminal investigation heated up. Neighbors saw Patty pacing her property at 3 a.m., white BMW popping up at City Hall daily. My security footage of her vandalizing my property went viral. 3 more board members quit. Real estate agents started warning buyers. Property values dropped. Patty started paying the attorney with money for snow removal and landscaping. Linda intercepted a phone call. You promised this would never come out, Patty screamed at her brother-in-law. The DA's office called Sarah. They were ready to indict. The city council meeting was packed. Patty pleaded her case, tears and all, claimed I was stealing homes. I presented my documents. Harold explained the surveys. Sarah dropped the embezzlement bomb. Linda read from meeting minutes. When the DA's investigator stood up and cuffed Patty for embezzlement and fraud, the room went silent. Harold, speaking for the HOA, accepted my settlement. The crowd cheered. 6 months later, I'm back at the lake, this time not alone. Harold's teaching his grandson to fish, Linda's running the grill, kids laughing, veterans telling stories around the fire pit. The $150,000 went to a scholarship fund for veterans' kids. Property values recovered. The community learned to work together. We started a festival, put 20 acres under conservation easement. Sarah now helps families fight HOA abuse across the state. If I learned anything, it's this: always know your boundaries, literally. Demand transparency, audit your HOA, keep your documents safe. Sometimes doing the right thing means fighting like hell, even when the whole world's watching. But if you've been through your own HOA nightmare, drop your story in the comments. I read every one. Next week, I'll tell you about the time my neighbor tried to claim my driveway and ended up owing me $50,000. Until then, keep fighting the good fight. Because sometimes doing what's right is the only thing worth doing.
Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn đã xem video.